this is our next part of the statistical mechanics syllabus that I am doing with you, that is quantum theory of radiation. So we had gone through the classical theory of radiation, and now we'll switch over to the quantum theory of radiation. Okay, so we saw that when blackbody radiation was studied by several, the nature of the curves obtained were like this, right? So if you plot the power radiated or the emissivity or energy density, all these are related parameters, as you know by now. So if that is plotted against wavelength, this is the curve, and we know that against frequency this will just be the opposite, because wavelength and frequency are reciprocal to each other. So we see that the experimental curve shows that initially there is a rise in the energy density which reaches a maximum at a certain value of the wavelength. Increasing wavelength, the energy density falls again. Okay, and as we go to higher, this is for a particular temperature, and as we go to higher and higher temperatures, we see that the value of the wavelength at which the energy density becomes maximum is lesser. That is, the maximum energy density is obtained at a lesser value of wavelength, and the value of this and the value of this energy, maximum value of this energy density is higher for higher temperatures, right? And this red line here is the path followed by the maximum value of this energy density at the wavelength, and the wavelength at which this maximum value is obtained. And we see that there is a certain relation that can be denoted to this path, and it is given by lambda m t equal to constant. Okay, so lambda m is the wavelength at which the maximum energy density is obtained, and t is the temperature at which, for that value of lambda m, we get the maximum energy density. And lambda mt equal to constant is known as Wien's displacement law, because it was Wien who gave this. And this follows from the experimental curve. Okay, so that is an observational law. And we know that you have probably done problems using this particular law when you did this part in your quantum theory syllabus, you know, finding out the temperature of the sun from the shift in the value of the energy density, etc. Okay, and it was also seen that the area under each curve at a given temperature gives you the total energy, and this total energy increases as the fourth power of the temperature, which is known as Stefan's law. Okay, and if the temperature of the surroundings is also included, that inclusive law is called Stefan-Boltzmann's law. So this is the experimental curve. Now obviously, the moment you get an experimental curve, and when there are two theoretical laws already supporting this, like Wien's displacement law and Stefan-Boltzmann law, then theoreticians start doing mathematical analysis so that they get a function which will fit these experimental curves, so that we get a law that will back this experimental curve. Okay, so we need a law, a mathematical relation connecting the energy density to the wavelength of radiation or frequency of radiation. So that was the goal of the theoreticians at this point of time. So obviously it was all classical physics at that point of time. So these radiations inside the black body cavity, or that emitted by the black body cavity, were all treated as electromagnetic radiations. And the attempts at explaining this using classical theory was first Wien's distribution law, which we saw was something like this. That is, dE goes as 1 by lambda to the power 5. Okay, and Rayleigh-Jean's law, which we actually proved, we derived Rayleigh-Jean's law in our previous class. That says that the energy density within a wavelength interval d lambda is given by 8 pi kT by lambda to the power 4 d lambda. That is, the energy density goes as 1 by lambda to the power 4. Okay. Now, what was found? It was found that if you compare Wien's law and Rayleigh-Jean's law with the experimental curve at a particular temperature, we see that Rayleigh-Jean's law is valid for high wavelengths, but as you go to low wavelengths, it goes way beyond the experimental curve. Okay, so we do not see the maximum and then the minimum, the what should I say, the decrease in the value of the energy density. Rayleigh-Jean's law only predicts increase in energy density with decrease in wavelength. Okay, Wien's law also does not follow the experimental curve for the entire range of wavelengths. So, in fact, so obviously we can see that there is a discrepancy between the theoretical predictions and the experimental observation. In fact, from Rayleigh-Jean's law, we get the absurd result that energy continuously increased to infinity as frequency is increased. If you plot this curve in terms of frequency, then we will see that the energy density increases with increasing frequency, and since there is no restriction on the frequency or the energy, both can increase indefinitely and continuously. So we got this absurd result predicted by Rayleigh-Jean's law that energy can continuously increase to infinite values. Also, total energy that is obtained by integrating this mathematical relation is found out to be infinite, which again is against Stefan's law. Stefan's law, which again is a proven experimental law, it doesn't match with that, because from Stefan's law we clearly see that energy is just proportional to the fourth power of temperature, whereas here it is predicted that the total energy can be infinitely large, can come to the values of infinity. So both these are absurd results, cannot happen in reality, and this led to the coining of the term ultraviolet catastrophe. Okay, catastrophe, all of you know the meaning of the word catastrophe. Catastrophe means when catastrophe, how do I explain catastrophe? Catastrophe means that ultimate chaos, everything is going haywire, something like what is happening now in our lives. Okay, this is catastrophe. Something that happened in Kedarnath when the cloudburst happened. Okay, so catastrophe means that nothing is normal, everything is good, that is happening is abnormal. So this was so absurd, this result, that the coining of the term ultraviolet catastrophe was done at this point of time. Now obviously scientists do not stop at wrong predictions or wrong results. That wrong results only motivate us to look forward, work harder to find out what the actual correct result is, correct law should be that would match with the experimental curve. Okay, and so came in Planck's theory of cavity radiation. Okay, this was in 1900 that Planck gave a revolutionary idea to the existing classical ideas that were present, and before we move on to Planck's idea, let us see what went wrong. Excuse me. Okay. Let us see what went wrong in the predictions of classical theory. Okay. So what did Max Planck predict? He predicted that the discrepancy between theory and experimental observation probably arose from the violation of the law of equipartition of energy. Okay. Now, all the classical theories were based on the law of equipartition of energy. Okay. So, and you, if you don't remember, then you can just go back to your previous class slides to see that we have derived Rayleigh-Jean's law based on this equipartition of energy theory. Okay, and Planck predicted that it is this equipartition of energy law that is creating the problem. Okay, incidentally, just a second. I'll just quote Planck. Okay. In fact, Planck was a German, as you know. Max Planck was a German physicist, educated in Munich and Berlin, and he had studied under Kirchhoff. All names that you know, he had studied under Kirchhoff and Helmholtz, and he was interested in black body radiation, particularly because he knew that he realized that this radiation was independent of atomic structure. As we discussed this profusely in our previous classes, that independent of the material with which the black body cavity was constructed, the radiation showed universal features. Okay, so and since experimental results were not yet backed by theory, Planck studied black body radiation, and he strived to give a theory to black body radiation from day one of his research career. Okay, um, and the result that he got, all of you know that it was the beginning of quantum physics, and he got the Nobel Prize. He proposed this in the year 1900. He got the Nobel Prize for this in 1918, and as I might have told you this many times, I must have repeated this many times, that Planck himself was a classical physicist. Okay? Although he was the father of quantum physics, but he was himself a very, very classical physicist by heart. Okay? And he himself was skeptical for a long time about the physical reality of this discretization of energy. I'll just quote, I found this quote where he has written down that my vain attempts to somehow reconcile elementary quantum with classical theory continued for many years and cost me great effort. But now I know for certain that the quantum has a much more fundamental significance than I originally suspected. Okay? So he was very skeptical about the quantum uh, prediction. Okay, as I told you, he was a classical theorist by heart, and he was very skeptical. He proposed quantum theory. He explained black body radiation, and we'll follow his steps to see how he explained black body radiation. But he spent a lot of his time, a great amount of his career was spent in trying to reconcile the discretization with classical physics. He wanted to keep the quantum predictions as just a special case of classical physics. Okay, but as we know now that it's the other way around. It's classical physics which is a special case of quantum phenomena. Quantum phenomena is the general rule that explains everything, and we have gone through this explanation. We've done the correspondence principle, we've done Ehrenfest's theorem, which shows that it is the classical or the macro world physics phenomena that happens to be a special case of the quantum ways of matter. All right, so let's see. how basically I have tried to compile things from different books. Mainly I have taken elements from Iceberg's book and this book on statistical physics that I have told you, Brijlal and Subramaniam, and I've tried to make the slides in the same order as perhaps Max Planck had uh, you know, taken his journey to finally find out the law of radiation, black body radiation. So I have tried sort of to reconstruct the exact order that was employed by Max Planck on how, first of all, why classical theories failed, what was the one point where they went wrong, and then what possibly could be the what possible change in that theory could bring about agreement of the experimental curve with the theory curve, and then application of that change mathematically to finally get the result. Okay, so this will be our order in which we will finally arrive at Planck's law. I'll go a little bit slowly because this is again, as I'm telling you, a very fundamental basic concept, and while I was preparing the slides myself, I realized that when we had done this in undergraduate physics, uh, several things were not clear. We could do the derivation, of course, at the end of a particular topic. The one thing that you all are able to do is derive the result, okay, and then use the result to do problems. But I realized that there are several things that were not pointed out in particular, so that, you know, the inherent steps could be understood, so that we don't need to learn up. It gets into our head and we understand the whole situation. Now, so this is the law, this is the plot which gives us, so this blue curve here is the experimental curve, okay, energy density versus frequency. So this blue curve is the experimental curve, this magenta dashed curve is Wien's distribution curve, and this green curve here which goes up, up and up, this is the Rayleigh-Jeans curve, which, as you can see, is going towards ultraviolet catastrophe. Okay. So once again, I'm telling you that if in between the steps, when I'm going through the steps, if you find anything anywhere where you are not being able to understand something, or you know, you feel that just repeating it once more would make the thing a little more clearer, then please unmute yourself and tell me that ma'am ei jagata ekটু repeat kore din. Okay, please feel free to do that. Okay, so this is the curve that we have all seen earlier. Now, what we see here is that Rayleigh-Jeans law, I have written it in short as RJ law. So Rayleigh-Jeans law matches the experimental curve at low frequencies, right? High wavelengths and therefore low frequencies. So we can assume, it is plausible to assume that the average energy when frequency tends to zero, that is low frequencies, is given by KT, equipartition law. Because Rayleigh-Jeans law is based on the law of equipartition of energy. The law of equipartition of energy for electromagnetic standing waves predicts the average energy to be kT, not half kT. Remember, because of the two states of polarization, we multiplied half kT by 2. So it comes out to be kT. And since Rayleigh-Jeans law matches experimental curve at low frequency, so we can assume that E is of the order of kT when frequency is very small. Okay. Now, okay. Now, according to the experimental curve, we see that for very high frequencies, the average energy sort of goes to zero. This is what is observed from experiment, and not just for one temperature. This is the graph for just one temperature, T equal to 5800 Kelvin. But if you plot this graph for several temperatures lower and higher than this, you get the same nature. Okay, so we can say that the theoretical law that we will get should give us a condition where this average energy should go to zero at very high frequencies. Okay, so Planck realized that in case of blackbody radiation, the average energy of the standing waves inside the cavity must be a function of frequency. That is for sure. The average energy changes with frequency clearly at all temperatures, and therefore with wavelength too. So the average energy has to be a function of frequency following the properties shown in the above plot, and therefore these two equations. So average energy must be a function of frequency, which goes to a value kT for nu tends to 0 and goes to a value 0 for nu tends to infinity. Okay. However, remember that if you follow the law of equipartition of energy, then there is no dependence of energy on frequency whatsoever. The law of equipartition of energy just says that the dependence is on temperature. At a particular temperature, the average energy per degree of freedom is given by half kT, and therefore here, since there are two states of polarization for electromagnetic waves, we have just kT. So the only dependence is on temperature. There is no dependence on frequency or wavelength. All right. So let us see what is the origin of this equipartition law, so that this prediction is not working in case of black body radiation. Okay, so let's see what is the origin of the. Do you remember what the origin of the equipartition law is? If you recall your kinetic theory of gases module, you should be একটু ভাবো কোথা থেকে ল অফ ইকুইপার্টিশন অফ এনার্জিটা পাওয়া গেছিল, মনে আছে কারুর? একদম ক্লাসিক্যাল থিওরি, ওই হিট অ্যান্ড থার্মোডাইনামিক্স। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, ডিগ্রিজ অফ ফ্রিডম তো বটেই, একটা কোনো মানে এক্ষুনি বললেই তো আমরা বলবো ও আচ্ছা আচ্ছা এটা, আচ্ছা বলেই দিই, Boltzmann distribution. Classical statistical mechanics, Boltzmann distribution. Remember average velocity, mean free path, kinetic theory, Boltzmann distribution. মনে পড়ছে Maxwell Boltzmann distribution, সেই bell shaped curved. হ্যাঁ, so this is the origin of the law of equipartition of energy. Okay, Boltzmann distribution. This is Boltzmann distribution. This is a form of Boltzmann distribution. Okay, where PD is the probability of finding a given entity of a system. We have a system of several entities of similar kind, and the probability of finding a given entity of a system within the energy range E and E plus D is this, when it follows Boltzmann distribution. E to the power minus E by KT, where K is Boltzmann constant and T is the absolute temperature. Okay, I hope you all recall this. Now, this system contains a large number of such entities of the same kind in thermal equilibrium at temperature T, right? So this is the exact condition under which we apply statistics, that we have a system where there is a large number of similar entities which have different range of energies. The energy range of these entities are different. Each one has a different energy. So we can talk of an average energy of the system, and we sort of predict the probability that so and so number of such entities belonging to the system has an energy between E and E plus D. And we see that this probability is following a statistics called Boltzmann distribution. Okay. Just a second. know that these entities are in thermal equilibrium at the temperature T. This is the first thing that we say, that the system is in thermal equilibrium with the surroundings. So we just talk about a single temperature T. Now in the present system, what do we have? We have a cavity where we have the cavity has absorbed all radiation that is incident on it, because it's a black body cavity, and remember how we constructed the cavity with just one hole through which radiation enters and then it cannot come out. And so what happens, this radiation emitted by the walls of the cavity, they start propagating from one wall, but all they can do is go and get reflected back from the opposite wall. And therefore what happens is, these electromagnetic waves inside the cavity, they continuously get reflected over one another, okay, on themselves or another similar kind of electromagnetic wave, and therefore standing waves are formed, okay. So in the present system, we have a set of simple harmonically oscillating standing waves, which are in thermal equilibrium with the black body cavity, and the energy of these simple harmonically oscillating standing waves follow this, okay, this distribution, that the probability of finding a particular standing wave within the energy range E and E plus D is given by this mathematical expression, e to the power minus E by kT by kT, okay. Now using the Boltzmann distribution function, we can get the average energy of the standing waves as this. Since this is the probability of finding a standing wave in the energy range E and E plus D, therefore the average energy will be, the total probability should be in the denominator, and the numerator will contain the weighted energy. E is the energy with probability P, okay. So the average energy is this expression. E can range from 0 to infinity, and there will be a D over here, just a second. Change gulo na korle উল্টে থেকেই যায়। Okay, so this is the average energy. You are familiar with finding out average in this form now. You encountered these kinds of expressions several times now in several modules that you have studied, okay. But we know that this energy is kT. So if you put this expression of P over here and do the integration, you can find out that this average energy comes out to be kT. So this is from where the equipartition law comes. All right. Now this graph I have taken from Iceberg's book. It will make the explanation very easy. The understanding from this graph becomes very easy. See, from the graph, if you can see it properly, you can zoom it. I don't know if it is possible to zoom. Later on you can zoom it and see, or if you have Iceberg's book, you can just turn to this page. I don't remember the page number, and see. So the plot is of P versus E, okay. P on the ordinate and E on the abscissa. So what do we find? We find that the maximum value of P is at E tends to 0, and the magnitude of this maximum value is 1 by kT. Okay. You can see from here that the maximum value of this probability is 1 by kT, and this is obtained at the value when energy tends to 0. On the other hand, the probability goes to 0 as energy tends to infinity, maintaining the average value of KT. Okay, so this is the plot of P versus E. And if you plot EP versus E, this EP versus E, then integrating this curve will give you the area under this curve, and that value comes out to be the average value, which is KT. Okay, so graphically you can understand how we are getting this result. All right. Now, what is Planck's contribution? This slide shows what the law of equipartition of energy predicts, how we get the law of equipartition of energy, and how is it applicable in our case of standing waves inside a cavity. Okay, so our system is a cavity within which we have a number of similar entities. What are these entities? These are electromagnetic standing waves. All right, so they follow this relation according to classical theorists. Now, what is Planck's contribution? He predicted that the condition that average energy goes to zero as frequency goes to infinity could be achieved only if the calculation of E bar, average energy, from P is done by treating the energy E as a discrete variable instead of the classical continuous variable that energy is considered to be. Okay, so once again I'll go back to this plot. You see, this energy here or here is definitely a continuous variable. It varies continuously. Okay, so Planck predicted that, so what was seen, that using this theory, it is, we saw that at low frequencies it's matching the experimental curve, but it's not happening at high frequencies. Experimentally at high frequencies too the energy goes to zero, but classical theory predicts that the energy goes to infinitely high values for high frequency. So Planck predicts that this condition, which is not coming from the existing equipartition law theory, will be valid, will be possible only if we consider that energy is treated as a discrete variable. Okay, so this is where the first switch over came in. So what is the first step? Till now we have seen how we first do the summation, and then we say that we take the interval to be very small slowly so that it approaches zero, so that we can replace summation by integration. Here we do the other way around. So the first step is to replace the integration by the summation in the expression of average energy. That is the first step. Okay, and second step, that energy, this is the most important contribution, the most important switchover, that energy can assume only certain discrete values that are uniformly distributed. So the value of energy of a particular entity, in this case a particular standing wave, may be 0 or delta E or twice delta E or thrice delta E, etc. So the energy can be in multiples of a certain minimum value given by delta E. Okay, delta E is the uniform interval between successive allowed values of energy. So this is the ad hoc prediction that Planck made, that we cannot allow just any value of energy to these oscillators, oscillators in the sense that these standing waves. The standing waves are to be treated as oscillators, discrete oscillators, and the energy value of these can be only certain allowed values. What are these allowed values? Multiples of a certain interval of energy given by delta E. So it can be 0 or it can be delta E, twice delta E, thrice delta E, etc. Clear? So Planck discovered that E equal to kT, the average energy equal to kT, is true when delta E is small. When this interval delta E is very small, then average energy equal to kT is valid. But E tends to 0 is approximately equal to 0 when delta E is large. When the interval delta E is large, then the average energy cannot be equated to kT anymore. That is, the law of equipartition of energy is not maintained anymore when this delta E value is large. Sounds good, because when delta E is small, that is the energy interval is small, the smaller the energy interval, the closer we go to continuity, right? And the larger the energy interval, the further we move away from continuity. So when delta is infinitesimally small, we have to integrate instead of summing. So that is when we go to continuous from discrete. And when delta E is not infinitesimally small, then we cannot use the law of equipartition of energy anymore. That is when the average energy goes to 0. This is what Planck discovered. Okay. So this must be valid for small nu. This is nu. This must be valid for small frequency, whereas this condition must be valid for large frequencies. Okay. So this whole scenario is possible when delta E is an increasing function of frequency. Again, I am repeating, the law of equipartition of energy does not give us any dependence of the energy with frequency. They are totally two disjoint sets. Energy is nowhere dependent on frequency or lambda. There is no mention of frequency or wavelength when the mention of energy is made. Only temperature is important. However, definitely that assumption or that theory does not give valid results, at least in the case of black body radiation. So what did Planck do? Planck predicted that since the theory that is based on the law of equipartition of energy matches experimental results at low frequency, then it must be that the new theory that should be given should have E as kT when the frequency is small. And it is found that when energy is treated to be discrete, multiples of a certain fundamental value delta E, then E equal to kT, average E equal to kT is valid when this delta E is small. So when delta E is small, that should be the condition for small frequencies, because at small frequency law of equipartition is maintained. So at small frequencies delta E should also be small. Whereas from the experimental curve, it is found that average energy goes to 0 for high frequencies. And Planck saw that average energy goes to 0 when delta E is large. So delta E must be large at high frequencies. So delta E, the fundamental value of energy, is small at small nu, is large at large nu. This is possible only if delta E is an increasing function of the frequency nu. Clear up to here? Okay. Assume the most basic relation when some quantity is increasing continuously, or rather, I shouldn't use the word continuous. When some quantity is an increasing function of a certain parameter, then the simplest relation is a direct proportion. Okay, so he assumed that delta E is proportional to the frequency, and he wrote delta E equal to h nu, where h is the constant of proportionality. Okay, the value of h was obtained. So he used this value of delta E. Okay, delta E is proportional to nu, so it must be equal to h nu, where h is the constant of proportionality. Now, how did we get the value of h? We will see how delta E is present in Planck's law of radiation. Okay, so that law of radiation was derived to fit the experimental curve. So while trying to fit the law of radiation predicted by him with the experimental curve, he used different values of h. All of you do best fit, right? When you do your Python algorithms, when you plot in GNuPlot, কি বস বলে এখন PyPlot, না? So what do? You use different parameters to find the best fit. You just change the value of the constant to find the best fit. So that was exactly what Planck was doing. Only remember, he did not have a computer. He did not have any programs running for him. All this was done by hand, calculation, plotting the graphs by hand. Okay, so I mean, just since you are now at the final semester of your course and about to be physics honors graduates, you should have a maturity enough to, appreciate these works. Not just think of Planck's law as E equal to h nu, and then the radiation law that we're going to derive very soon. I am taking you through this journey so that not only do you understand how the switch from classical to quantum was made, but also the way in which the work was done. Just imagine that a person sitting and trying to make a best fit of a predicted mathematical relation with experimentally observed plots, and that uh, trial and error method gives us the value of h. I'm sure all of you are at this point of time matured, physics wise matured enough to appreciate the importance of the value of h, Planck's constant, right? It is the basic of the entire of quantum mechanics. Wherever in quantum mechanics you do anything, the value of h is there. H forms one of the most fundamental of all numbers that exist universally. And just imagine how this h value was discovered. While you study, keep on wondering about all these facts also. It will give you a sense of appreciation and also a sense of satisfaction that you have a chance of studying this beautiful subject. There is a beauty in every discovery of physics if you think about it like that. Just don't think about it only in the textbook way of how I will get a little more marks. Try to understand the inner meanings, how this person had worked, day and night, scribbling probably on papers, plotting away, trying to fit the already available black body radiation experimental curves, and lo and behold, he gets the value of h. Okay, so this is how the value of h was obtained. So the switch from continuous to discrete and the introduction of h. Okay, What were Planck's quantum postulates? First, a cavity emitting black body radiation. But now, in the classical theory, what had we assumed? What was the picture? That there is a cavity, and as I told you, radiation emitted from the walls goes to the opposite wall, gets reflected on itself, and a standing wave is formed. And in this way, the entire cavity is full of standing waves with nodes on the two walls. So two position of nodes are fixed, and depending on the different modes of vibration, there may be other position of nodes also. But basically, we have a cavity full of standing waves, stationary waves. Okay. According to Planck's postulate, the cavity that is emitting black body radiation contains simple harmonic oscillators, also known as Planck's oscillators, which are of molecular dimensions. Okay, so these molecular oscillators or resonators, they undergo vibration with all possible frequencies, and the vibration of the resonator entails 1 degree of freedom only. Since it's a one dimensionally vibrating resonator, so it entails only 1 degree of freedom. Okay, I hope you all can visualize the picture. So you can think of these molecules as each molecule can be represented by a single string. All of you have in your waves and oscillations chapter, all of you had gone through this chapter on vibration in strings. Remember, stretch string fixed at two ends. So one node at each end is surely there. And then according to the mode of vibration, there may be more nodes in between these two nodes. So these standing waves, which were actually electromagnetic standing waves according to classical theory, are replaced by one-dimensional resonators or oscillators, which form the standing waves with nodes at the two walls. Okay. Next, these resonators, while emitting or absorbing energy, do not do so continuously. So since these are resonators, all of you know how to calculate the total energy of a simple harmonic oscillator. They either absorb this energy or emit this energy, but unlike our classical theory, the energy absorbed or emitted by these resonators is not done continuously, but in the form of packets or quanta of energy called photons. Delta E equal to h nu. Remember, the minimum value of energy that any such resonator can have is delta E, and we saw delta E is proportional to the frequency. So delta E is equal to h nu. Okay, and these packets or quanta of energy were called photons. Planck assumed that the energy of each such photon has a magnitude h nu, where h, Planck's constant, has the value 6.62 10 to the power minus 34 joules second. This was again an assumption, and as I told you elaborately how the value of h was finally decided. And the value of h that was predicted by Planck according to the best fit of the black body radiation experimental curve comes to be very close to this value of h that is now universally accepted. The exchange of energy, that is emission on absorption, takes place as integral multiple of the energy of a single resonator. So a single resonator has an energy delta E equal to h nu, and the emission or absorption takes place as an integral multiple of the energy of a single resonator. So the amount of energy exchanged during emission and absorption will be in amounts of the form 0, h nu, 2h nu, 3h nu, etc. and h nu. All right. These 4 statements, in many books these are given as 2 statements, but I prefer to separate these out into 4 statements. These form the basic postulates based on which the derivation of Planck's radiation law will be made. Are these clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now we are at a position to derive Planck's radiation law. Now I leave this to you. Do you want me? Derivation of Planck's radiation law is a bit involved. So since I already told you several new things today, do you want me to continue with the derivation of the law, or do you want to go through the reason of failure, uh, the origin of equipartition, why it failed to predict the things that we already discussed, and how Planck switched over from continuous to discrete? Do you want to go through that and we'll do derivation in the next week, or do you want me to continue with the derivation today? Totally up to you. বলো, তোমরা বলো। পড়বো, বলবো? আচ্ছা, actually this derivation has 2 parts. First we have to find out the number of resonators per unit volume having frequency between nu and nu plus d nu, and the second part we'll have to calculate the average energy per resonator. Okay, so এটা যথেষ্ট লম্বা একটা process. So so what we'll do is we'll stop here. Okay, we'll stop here. I want you to go through the slides up to here. Okay, please try to understand. So yes, so till where did we do? Planck's postulates. Yes, so the derivation takes another 6 slides. Okay, so let's leave it here. So what I want you to really do